Mom sneered. "No surprise you're still single at 35. I calmly replied, "Funny, I've been married 3 years. You just weren't invited." Her wine glass shattered in shock. What if the person who raised you, the one who taught you right from wrong, demanded you choose between her approval and your own happiness? What if that impossible ultimatum forced you into a double life, a marriage hidden, a child a secret, until one shattering moment brought everything crashing down? The air in my mother Susan Clark's opulent Connecticut home always felt like it was holding its breath, a fragile glass menagerie of perfection. Tonight, at the annual family reunion, it was primed to shatter. Every polished surface, every flickering candle, reflected not warmth, but the simmering tension I'd carried for years, until finally, my hidden world erupted, sending a family photo crashing to the floor, and the truth spilling out for everyone to see. Now, before I dive into the absolute chaos that unfolded, if you've ever had to fight for your own happiness against overwhelming family expectations, drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from. And if stories about standing up for yourself resonate, hit that subscribe button. My relationship with my mother, Susan Clark, was never easy. It felt like constantly walking on eggshells scattered across perfectly polished marble. She embodied perfection in our suburban world, every blonde hair in place, clothes immaculate, her country club president reputation untarnished. Naturally, she expected nothing less from me, her only daughter. My dad, Richard, was my shield. His gentle humor, a knowing wink across the dinner table, was my only refuge when Mom launched into lectures about posture or the right clubs. "Just be yourself, Emily Bear," he'd whisper. "That's more than enough." But when I was 12, his sudden heart attack ripped him from us. Just Mom and me, alone in a big house, drowning in expectations. After Dad died, Mom's grip tightened. Every report card was a critique. Every friend vetted. Every outfit approved or dismissed with a chilling eye. "Harvard doesn't accept B-plus students, Emily," she'd declare when my grades weren't flawless. "That skirt makes your hips look wide," she'd comment, making me feel wrong. There was always something to fix, something inherently not enough about me. By high school, I was a master of evasion, anticipating her critiques before they left her lips. I joined the right clubs, maintained a perfect GPA, and dated boys from good families. Mark Thompson, son of Dad's former business partner, was her favorite. "Now there's a boy with a future," she'd purr, a not-so-subtle hint. It didn't matter that Mark had the personality of cardboard and hands that wandered too freely. His social standing trumped everything. College intensified the pressure. Mom had my life meticulously planned. Ivy League, law or medicine, married by 25 to someone from our social circle. I went to Columbia as she wished, but rebelled slightly by choosing English literature over pre-law. "Poetry won't pay the bills, Emily," she'd sigh, a sound I'd grown to dread. Graduation brought an unbearable urgency to find a husband. Mom's dinner parties became parades of eligible bachelors. "Brenda's son just made partner at his law firm," she'd stage whisper. Or "Noah bought a summer house in the Hamptons, isn't that wonderful?" Each man was cattle at auction, and I was the prize. When I dared to date someone of my own choosing, Mom became a sabotage expert. My childhood bedwetting was accidentally revealed to Daniel at dessert. Kevin's career prospects were questioned so brutally he never called again. And when I brought home Brian, a brilliant art historian, she simply appraised him from head to toe and said, "I suppose some women don't mind being the breadwinner," ending things before they even began. The comparisons were relentless. "Did you know Sarah is engaged to a surgeon? Laura just got promoted to VP and volunteers." The message was clear. Other daughters were thriving. I was failing. By 25, I was suffocating. The constant pressure, the disapproval, the feeling I could never measure up had worn me to a nub. So, when a job opened in Seattle, 2,000 miles from Connecticut, I didn't just jump, I leapt. Mom was furious. "Running away won't find you a husband, Emily," she snapped as I packed. "You'll end up alone." I moved anyway, telling myself it was temporary. A year or two, just for independence. But the truth was, a part of me still hoped. Every small success, every accomplishment in my new life was secretly measured against one question. Would this finally be enough to make Mom proud? But as the distance grew, physically and emotionally, I began to breathe. To discover me. To realize that 3,000 miles still weren't far enough to escape her shadow, and that my search for independence would lead me straight to the love that would change everything. 6 months after moving to Seattle, I literally crashed into Ethan Miller on my first day at Horizon Technologies. Lost in a maze of corridors, already late, I spilled my coffee all over his shirt. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, mortified. He looked down at the dark stain, then back at me, a genuine smile spreading across his face. "This shirt was due for retirement anyway," he chuckled, extending a hand. Ethan Miller, lead software engineer, and now walking coffee advertisement. There was something instantly disarming about him. Tall, unruly dark hair, glasses perpetually sliding down his nose, and a calm demeanor that utterly contrasted with the high-strung personalities I'd known. He walked me to my meeting, then offered a proper tour, which somehow morphed into lunch. I learned he grew up in a small Oregon town, son of a teacher and a nurse, put himself through college. At 32, he was respected, but completely uninterested in the corporate ladder. "I just want to build things that help people," he said simply. "Titles and corner offices don't interest me." I could already hear my mother's assessment. No ambition, no connections, probably no savings. But his authenticity drew me in like a magnet. We became friends, cafeteria lunches, work emails, happy hours. 3 months in, we were the last two at a table, our conversations stretching from work to books, music, childhood dreams. I confessed my secret passion for photography, a dream Mom had dismissed as just a hobby. He listened, truly listened, then insisted we go buy a camera immediately. "Life's too short not to do what you love," he said, as we left the electronics store. That night, walking me home, Ethan kissed me for the first time. Gentle, questioning. But I didn't pull away. I leaned in, feeling a piece of myself click into place that I hadn't known was missing. Our relationship blossomed. We hiked Seattle's lush forests, explored hidden bookstores, cooked elaborate meals on rainy Sundays. Ethan encouraged my photography, proudly displaying my pictures on his walls. For the first time, I felt seen. Not for who someone wanted me to be, but for who I was. He loved my quirks, listened to my dreams, made me feel enough. Just enough. I knew the honeymoon wouldn't last forever. The real test? Ethan meeting my mother. I procrastinated, making excuses, but when Mom announced a Seattle conference visit, there was no escaping it. I spent days prepping him. "She can be critical," I warned. "She has very specific ideas about who I should be with." Ethan squeezed my hand. "Emily, I love you. Your mom might not approve right away, but I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure it out." The dinner was every bit the disaster I'd envisioned. Mom arrived early, impeccably dressed, making my outfit feel instantly shabby. Her eyes narrowed as Ethan stood, taking in his casual button-down. "So, Ethan," she began, her voice dripping, "Emily tells me you work with computers. Is there much future in that?" It was the first volley in a 3-hour interrogation. His education, a state school, how quaint. His family, teachers are so underappreciated. I suppose it explains your salary expectations. His 5-year plan, no aspirations to management. How unusual for a man your age. Ethan remained polite, thoughtful, even tried to find common ground. But Mom wasn't interested. She was conducting an assessment, and it was painfully clear Ethan was failing spectacularly. By dessert, I was fighting tears of humiliation. When Ethan excused himself, Mom leaned across the table. "Darling, he seems nice enough for a casual relationship, but surely you can't be serious? No connections, no real ambition. You'd be supporting him within 5 years. Mark my words." When Ethan returned, she switched tactics, regaling him with tales of eligible bachelors back east. "Andrew just made junior partner at his father's firm," she said, eyeing me pointedly. "He always asks about you, Emily." That night, after Mom returned to her hotel, Ethan held me as I sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I told you she was horrible." "Hey," he murmured, gently wiping my tears. I didn't fall in love with your mother. I fell in love with you. If it takes her time to warm up, that's okay. We have time. But months blurred into a stark reality. Mom had no intention of warming up. Her calls grew more frequent, always with news of someone from home getting engaged, promoted, buying property. Life is moving on without you, Emily, she'd say. Don't waste your youth on dead-end relationships. Ethan never complained, but I saw the toll. His smile would falter when her name flashed on my phone. The quiet resignation when I'd cancel our plans because Mom had suddenly decided to visit. Despite it all, he remained patient, loving, supportive. I fell deeper in love, even as I dreaded our future. 6 months into our relationship, Mom's interference shifted from passive aggression to outright sabotage. It started with a little surprise she'd arranged for David Young, her bridge partner's recently divorced son, to accidentally be in Seattle. I thought we could all have dinner, she said innocently. David remembered how you two hit it off at the Millers' Christmas party years ago. I had no recollection of a David Young, but that didn't stop Mom from orchestrating an awkward dinner where she practically shoved me into his lap while Ethan watched, stunned. David, to his credit, seemed as uncomfortable as I was, especially when Mom started listing my accomplishments as if reading a resume. Emily graduated cum laude from Columbia, she told him, ignoring Ethan completely. She could have gone to law school, but decided to explore her options first. Such a shame. But it's never too late, is it? After that dinner, the floodgates opened. Suddenly, Mom was connecting me with every eligible bachelor passing through Seattle. Jacob, the neurosurgeon. Andrew, the hedge fund manager. Tyler, the attorney whose mother was Mom's Vassar roommate. The phone calls became relentless, more pointed. Emily, darling, I'm just concerned about your future. You're approaching 30. Do you really want to waste these crucial years on someone who will never fit into our world? Ethan is my world now, Mom, I'd counter, met only with a heavy sigh. You always were stubborn, just like your father. Look how that turned out for him. Working himself to death in a job that never appreciated him. That comment. Bringing Dad into it. Something broke inside me. Don't talk about Dad that way. My voice shook. He was happy. He loved his work, his life. Not everything is about status and connections. Clearly, Ethan has been filling your head with this bohemian nonsense, she replied, her voice cold. Your father could have been so much more if he'd listened to me. I won't stand by and watch you make the same mistakes. The tension climaxed at Aunt Brenda's annual lake house reunion. Mom insisted I come alone, claiming it was family only, but I knew she didn't want Ethan around. Against my better judgment, I agreed, not wanting to cause a scene. I should have known her motives. She'd invited David Young again, her college friend's recently divorced son. David was generically handsome, perfectly coiffed, country club tanned, and impossibly arrogant. He couldn't stop talking about his Porsche. During dinner, Mom clinked her glass. I have a little announcement, she beamed. David just made partner at Wilson and Associates, and he's generously offered to give Emily some career advice. Isn't that wonderful? Before I could react, she added, who knows? Maybe he can convince her to move back east, where she belongs. The whole table turned, expectant smiles plastered on their faces. I felt trapped. Cornered. Like prey. Actually, I said, my voice clear despite my thundering heart, I'm very happy with my job in Seattle. And I'm in a serious relationship. Mom's smile froze. Emily is being modest, she chirped. This little marketing job is just a stepping stone, isn't it, darling? And as for this boy she's seeing, summer flings are nice, but winter is coming. The table erupted in laughter, indulgent and pitying. My face burned. Later, as David cornered me on the porch with thinly veiled propositions, I texted Ethan. I can't do this anymore. Can you come get me? 3 hours later, Ethan's modest Honda pulled into Aunt Brenda's circular driveway. The look on Mom's face when I introduced him and announced we were leaving? A volatile mix of shock, anger, and utter embarrassment. You're making a scene, Emily, she hissed as I gathered my things. No, Mom, I replied, loud enough for nearby relatives to hear. You've been making a scene since the day I introduced you to Ethan. The drive back to Seattle was heavy with silence. For the first time, Ethan didn't try to smooth things over. "I can't keep doing this, Emily," he finally said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I love you, but your mother is never going to accept me, and I can't spend the rest of our lives being treated like I'm not good enough." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Are you breaking up with me?" He sighed deeply. "No. I'm asking you to make a choice. Either we set boundaries with your mother, or this relationship won't survive." The next few weeks were pure agony. I tried explaining to Mom how her behavior was hurting us. She dismissed it. "If your relationship can't withstand a mother's natural concern, then it's not strong enough," she declared. Meanwhile, the tension between Ethan and me grew. We argued over trivial things, the pressure from my family casting a long, dark shadow over our once effortless connection. I'd wake up crying silently, Ethan sleeping beside me, torn between the two people I loved most. The breaking point arrived one Sunday morning. Mom showed up unannounced at my apartment. Ethan and I were enjoying a lazy breakfast when the doorbell rang. There she was, designer suitcase in hand, announcing she was spending quality time with me. For a week, she dominated every conversation, criticized everything from my decor to my job, and made any private moment with Ethan impossible. When Ethan suggested dinner to clear the air, Mom feigned a headache, only to call me an hour later, lonely, asking me to come home. After she finally left, Ethan and I had the biggest fight of our lives. "She's never going to stop, Emily," he roared, pacing our small living room. "She'll keep interfering until she gets what she wants, which is us breaking up." "What am I supposed to do?" I cried. "She's my mother. And I want to be your husband," he shouted back, stopping abruptly, looking as stunned by his own words as I was. In the stunned silence that followed, we both knew, crossroads. Something had to change, or we would lose each other. Neither of us knew then just how dramatic that change would be, or how it would alter everything. 2 months later, Ethan and I escaped to the San Juan Islands. The strain from my mother's constant presence had frayed our nerves, and we craved a few days of peace. We found a small cottage overlooking the water, spent our days hiking through towering pines and evenings watching sunsets paint the sky. On our second night, Ethan suggested a walk on the beach. The moon cast a silver path across the dark water, the only sounds the gentle lapping of waves and distant gulls. "Remember our first trip to the coast?" Ethan asked, skipping a stone. I smiled. "You tried to impress me with your surfing skills and ended up with a bloody nose." He laughed. "Not my finest moment. But you took care of me. And that's when I knew." "Knew what?" "That you were the one I wanted to spend my life taking care of and being taken care of by." Before I could respond, he was on one knee. He pulled out a small velvet box. Inside, a modest diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires, the color of the sea behind him. "Emily Anderson," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I've loved you since the moment you spilled coffee all over my favorite shirt. I love your kind heart, your quiet strength, your determination to see the good in people, even when they make it difficult." He took a deep breath. "I know things have been hard with your family, but I promise to stand by you through whatever comes next. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face. I could only nod, unable to speak. When he slipped the ring onto my finger, it felt utterly, perfectly right, in a way few things in my life ever had. We spent the rest of the evening dreaming, planning our future, deliberately avoiding the elephant in the room, Mom. Reality crashed back when we returned to Seattle. The weight of what was coming settled on my shoulders. I had to tell her. I knew it wouldn't go well. After 3 days of pure dread, I finally called her on a Wednesday evening. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. "Emily, darling, what a nice surprise." Her voice was warm, for once. "I was just thinking of you. Brenda's daughter just got engaged to the most wonderful boy from Greenwich. His family owns that publishing company, you know the one." I took a deep breath. "Mom, I have some news too. Ethan asked me to marry him, and I said yes." The silence that followed was so complete, I thought the call had dropped. Then, her voice, cold and controlled. "I see. And when did this happen?" "Last weekend. We went to the San Juan Islands." Have you set a date? She interrupted. Not yet. We were thinking maybe next spring. There's still time to reconsider, she cut in again. Darling, engagements break all the time. No one would think less of you. I gripped the phone. Mom, I'm not breaking the engagement. I love Ethan, and we are getting married. Emily Elizabeth Anderson, she said, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, you cannot possibly be serious about marrying that nobody. What about your future? What about children? Do you want them growing up without the advantages you had? Ethan is not a nobody. I snapped, my temper finally flaring. He is brilliant and kind and loves me for who I am, not who he wants me to be. Is that a dig at me? She asked sharply. After everything I've done for you? I have only ever wanted what's best for you. No, Mom. You've only ever wanted what you think is best for me. There's a difference. The conversation spiraled. She alternated between icy fury and tearful manipulation, telling me I was throwing away my future, that I'd regret this, that I was breaking her heart. Your father would be so disappointed, she said, delivering the cruelest blow. Dad would have loved Ethan. I countered, tears streaming. He would have seen what a good man he is. Well, your father isn't here, is he? And I'm telling you, this is a mistake. If you marry that man, Emily, don't expect me to be there. In fact, don't expect me to be in your life at all. Her final words left me cold. If you choose him over your family, Emily, don't ever call me mother again. The line went dead. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. That's how Ethan found me an hour later. He held me, letting me tell him everything through hiccuping sobs. She said she'd disown me, Ethan. She said not to call her mother anymore. His face was grim, but his voice gentle. Emily, I love you more than anything, but I need you to be sure. If you want to call off the engagement, I'll understand. I looked up, my eyes swollen. Is that what you want? No, he said firmly. I want to marry you. I want us to build a life together. But I don't want to be the reason you lose your family. I thought about Mom's ultimatum, her constant criticism, her inability to accept my choices. Then I thought about Ethan, who loved me unconditionally, who never tried to change me. You are not the reason, I said, finally. I'm not calling off the engagement, Ethan. I want to marry you. But I took a deep breath, an idea taking root. But I don't think I can face a big wedding with her there, or worse, making everyone miserable. What would you think about eloping? Just us. Somewhere beautiful. Without all the drama. Ethan studied my face. Are you sure that's what you want? Not just to avoid your mother, but truly what you want for our wedding. I nodded, a strange sense of relief washing over me. Yes. Just us, making promises to each other. That's all that matters to me. 2 weeks later, we were married on the same beach where Ethan proposed. His parents were there, his sister and her husband, and my 2 closest friends from Seattle. It was simple, intimate, perfect. Except for the hollow space where my family should have been. As we exchanged vows, the waves crashing softly, I made another silent promise. I wouldn't let her absence taint this day, or our future. I was choosing happiness. Choosing love. Choosing Ethan. It was the hardest decision I'd ever made, but looking into the eyes of the man who loved me completely, I knew it was the right one. What I didn't know then was that this decision would chain me to a double life for the next 3 years. A life of secrets and omissions that would eventually collide in the most dramatic way possible. Our honeymoon was a week in a small coastal town in Oregon. For that one perfect week, it was just Ethan and me, building our life. Reality returned when we got back to Seattle. My mother had called twice, leaving messages as if nothing had happened. Emily, darling, call me back when you get a chance. Janet Williams is hosting a charity gala next month. I thought you might want to fly back. Her son Jacob just finished his residency at Mass General. I listened, a mix of sadness and disbelief. It was as if she'd completely erased our last conversation, my engagement, from her memory. When I finally called back, I carefully avoided any mention of the wedding. I can't make it to Janet's gala, Mom. Work is really busy. Always work with you, she sighed. Well, when are you coming to visit then? It's been months. This began the strangest chapter of my life. I maintained contact through carefully choreographed phone calls and occasional visits back east. Each time, my wedding ring would slip from my finger onto a chain, hidden beneath my blouse. Ethan never came. He understood it was easier this way, though I saw the hurt in his eyes every time I packed. When Mom visited Seattle, thankfully rare, I'd temporarily move back into my old apartment. We kept it specifically for this. Ethan would stay with friends. The apartment was maintained as if I still lived alone, a single toothbrush, no male clothing. This place could use a man's touch, Mom would often comment, scanning the deliberately sparse decor. I'd offer a tight smile and change the subject. The weight of my secret life grew heavier with each lie. Meanwhile, Ethan and I built our real life. A cozy house in a quiet neighborhood, a small garden where Ethan grew vegetables, a spare bedroom we dreamed of turning into a nursery. We made friends, joined a book club, settled into the comfortable rhythm of married life. My career flourished. I became senior communications director. Ethan excelled, developing industry-recognized software. But every success, every happy moment, was shadowed by the truth I was hiding from my mother. There were times I almost told her, when the deception became unbearable. But then she'd make a cutting remark about Ethan or my career, and I'd remember why I'd made this choice. Our second anniversary brought unexpected news. I was pregnant. We'd been trying, but the reality still took my breath away. As the doctor confirmed it, Ethan squeezed my hand, his face a mixture of joy and disbelief. "We're going to be parents," he whispered. The pregnancy brought our double life into sharp focus. How could I hide a child from my mother? Would I pretend to be a single mother? The questions swirled as my body changed. Our baby grew. At the 20-week ultrasound, we learned it was a girl. Ethan cried. That night, discussing names, the full weight of it hit me. "My mother doesn't even know she's going to be a grandmother," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. "What kind of person does that make me?" Ethan held me close. "It makes you someone who had to make an impossible choice. You did what you had to do to protect yourself and our family. That doesn't make you a bad person." Hazel Lily Grace Miller was born on a rainy Tuesday in October, 7 pounds, 2 ounces of perfect baby girl, with Ethan's dark hair and my green eyes. Holding her, I felt a love so fierce it took my breath away, and a renewed grief for what my mother was missing and what Hazel would miss. The day after Hazel was born, I sent Mom a text. Carefully worded, no mention of Ethan or marriage. "Mom, I have some news. You're a grandmother. I had a baby girl yesterday, Hazel Grace. We're both doing well." Her response came hours later, a flurry of shocked questions, barely concealed judgment. "A baby, Emily? What are you talking about? Whose baby? Are you saying you had a child out of wedlock? Who is the father? Why am I just hearing about this now?" I avoided her calls for 3 days, citing recovery. When I finally spoke to her, I gave her the edited truth. "Yes, I had a baby. No, I wasn't in a relationship with the father. Technically true, I was in a marriage, not just a relationship. Yes, I was raising her on my own, with the unmentioned support of my husband." Mom was horrified. "This is what happens when you move across the country, away from your family and proper influences," she declared, her voice cold with disapproval. "I knew Seattle would lead to trouble." "Well, you've made your bed, Emily. I suppose now you'll have to lie in it." She didn't ask to visit. I didn't invite her. Instead, an impersonal gift basket arrived with expensive baby clothes and a card signed, "Grandmother." It sat unopened for days, a symbol of the chasm between us. As Hazel grew, the double life became unbearable. Ethan's parents visited regularly, doting on their granddaughter. My side of the family remained conspicuously absent, explained away to friends with vague references to complicated family dynamics. The logistics of the charade grew more challenging. Mom's rare visits meant packing up not just my things, but all evidence of Hazel. I'd tell Mom Hazel was with a friend, or her father for visitation. Lies piled on lies, a precarious tower destined to fall. The strain showed in my relationship with Ethan, in the dark circles under my eyes, in the moments I'd stare at Hazel and wonder if I was teaching her it was okay to hide. "Who you really are. By Hazel's second birthday, I was utterly exhausted. Ethan and I started discussing telling Mom the truth, consequences be damned. But every time I almost found the courage, something would happen. A cutting remark from Mom about single motherhood, a pointed question about when I'd get my life together and find Hazel a proper father. As Hazel's third birthday approached, and my own 35th loomed, the annual family reunion invitation arrived. This year, at Mom's house, a command performance I couldn't avoid without raising suspicions. Little did I know, this reunion would be the catalyst. The moment my two worlds would finally collide, forcing me to confront the truth I'd hidden for 3 long years. I arrived at my mother's Connecticut home on a Friday afternoon, alone as always. Hazel and Ethan were in Seattle, a separation that felt more painful than ever. Mom greeted me with air kisses and a critical once-over. "Darling, you look tired," she said, ushering me inside. "Is that child still keeping you up?" "At 3, she really should be sleeping through." "Hazel sleeps fine, Mom," I replied, setting down my suitcase. "Work's just busy." The house was immaculate as always. Every surface gleaming, fresh flowers in crystal vases. Family photos lined the hallway. Me in my graduation cap, Dad's proud arm around me, Mom at some charity event, elegant. Conspicuously absent, any photos of Hazel, my own daughter, relegated to a secret that didn't fit our perfect family narrative. The reunion began that evening with immediate family dinner. Aunt Brenda and her husband Michael, my cousins Olivia and Noah, and my Uncle James, Dad's younger brother. Dinner was formal, in the intimidating dining room. Mom's famous beef Wellington, expensive wine. "So, Emily," Aunt Brenda began as we moved to dessert, "how is life as a single mother?" "It must be so difficult." My cheeks flushed. "It's challenging sometimes, but we're doing well." "And the father?" Uncle James asked, always direct. "Is he in the picture at all?" Before I could answer, Mom cut in smoothly. "Emily prefers not to discuss that, James. Some decisions, once made, are best left in the past." The edge in her voice made her judgment clear. I gripped my fork, fighting the urge to explode. The evening continued with subtle digs and probing questions disguised as concern. By the time I retreated to my old bedroom, I was emotionally drained. I called Ethan, speaking in hushed tones. "I don't know if I can do this for another 2 days," I confessed, curled on my childhood bed. "Mom keeps making comments. Everyone looks at me like I'm some cautionary tale." "Then tell them, Emily," Ethan said simply. "Tell them the truth. Or come home. You don't have to stay there and take this." I sighed, looking around the room that now felt like a museum to a person I no longer was. "I can't just leave. That would make things worse. And I'm not ready to tell them. I need to find the right moment." The next day brought the extended family, cousins, second cousins, great aunts. The house buzzed with noise. I navigated the crowd, answering the same questions about Seattle, work, Hazel, carefully avoiding any mention of my personal life. Then, that evening at the formal dinner, everything came to a head. Mom had seated me between my cousin Olivia, a newly made law partner, and great Aunt Beatrice, who specialized in unsolicited life advice. The table was exquisite, candles flickering, good china out. Mom stood at the head, raising her glass. To family, she smiled benevolently. "The most important thing in life." Murmurs of agreement. She continued, "And to new beginnings. Chloe and Noah are expecting their first child in December, making me a great aunt at last." Congratulations erupted. Chloe blushed. I felt a sharp stab of pain, thinking of Hazel, already 3, never acknowledged by her own grandmother. "And of course," Mom added, her gaze sliding to me, "we continue to hope that Emily will find her way. 35 and still single. But as they say, it's never too late." Laughter rippled, indulgent, slightly pitying. I sat frozen, wine glass halfway to my lips as Mom went on. "Though perhaps it's time to accept that some women are simply meant for career success rather than family life. Not everyone can have it all, after all." "Actually, Mom," I heard myself say, my voice clear and steady despite the thunder in my chest, "I'm not single." The table fell silent. All eyes were on me. Mom's smile remained fixed, though her eyes narrowed. Darling, what are you talking about? Have you been keeping secrets from your mother? There it was. The perfect opening. Delivered with just enough saccharine concern to mask the accusation. Something snapped. 3 years of lies. Pretense. Hidden resentment. Breaking free. Yes, I have, I said, carefully setting down my glass. I've been married for 3 years. The silence was absolute. Mom's smile froze. Her face was a mask of confusion, then disbelief. What are you saying, Emily? This isn't funny. It's not a joke, Mom. I married Ethan Miller 3 years ago. The same Ethan you said wasn't good enough for me. The same Ethan who is Hazel's father. My husband. Around the table, relatives exchanged shocked glances. Aunt Brenda's hand flew to her mouth. Uncle James let out a low whistle. That's not possible, Mom said, her voice rising slightly. You would have told me. You wouldn't have kept something like that from your own mother. I laughed, a raw, humorless sound. Wouldn't I? You told me if I married him, I should never call you Mother again. You gave me an ultimatum, and I made my choice. I never said that, she protested, looking around for support. Emily is exaggerating. We had a disagreement about her boyfriend. Husband, I corrected. And you did say it. You said if I chose him over my family, not to call you Mother anymore. So I did what you asked. I never told you I got married. I never told you Ethan is Hazel's father. I never told you about our house, our life together, any of it. Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her small clutch. She pulled out a silver-framed photo, the family portrait from my college graduation. This is our family, she said, holding it up like evidence. Just us. That was 10 years ago, Mom. This is our family now. I pulled out my phone, opening to a recent photo. Ethan, Hazel, and me at the park, faces close, smiling in the sunlight. I held it out. Mom stared for a long moment. Then, suddenly, the frame slipped from her fingers, crashing to the table, sending shards of glass scattering across the pristine white tablecloth. You lied to me, she whispered, her face pale. For 3 years, you lied to my face. Yes, I admitted. I did. Because you gave me no choice. You made me choose between the man I love and my mother, and it broke my heart. But I chose Ethan, and it was the right choice. He loves me for who I am, not for who he wants me to be. Mom pushed back from the table abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. I think you should leave, she said, her voice shaking with anger, or hurt, or both. If this is how little our family means to you, that you would deceive us this way, then perhaps you don't belong here after all. I stood slowly, looking around at the shocked faces of my relatives. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, I said to them. I never wanted to lie to any of you. But Mom made it impossible for me to tell the truth. As I turned, Uncle James spoke up. Susan Clark, this is ridiculous. She's your daughter. Are you really going to throw her out for getting married? Stay out of this, James. Mom snapped. You have no idea what she's done. What she's done, Aunt Brenda said quietly, is create a family. Is that really so unforgivable? Mom didn't answer, her back rigid as she stared out the dining room window. I gathered my purse and walked to the door, pausing. For what it's worth, Mom, I never wanted it to be this way. I always hoped someday you would accept Ethan. Accept us. I guess I was wrong. I walked out of the dining room with all the dignity I could muster, though my legs felt weak and my hands trembled. As I climbed the stairs to pack, I heard the murmur of voices rising behind me, arguments breaking out among the family. In my room, I quickly threw my belongings into my suitcase, tears blurring my vision. I called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. Emily, what's wrong? I told them, I said, my voice breaking. I told everyone. About us. About our marriage. Mom kicked me out. Are you okay? Where are you going to go? I'll get a hotel for tonight and fly home tomorrow, I said, zipping the suitcase. I'm so sorry, Emily, he said softly. I wish I was there with you. Me too, I whispered. As I carried my suitcase downstairs, Uncle James was waiting. I'll drive you to a hotel, he said, taking my bag. This isn't right, what Susan Clark is doing. Thank you, I managed, grateful for the small kindness. As we walked to the door, Mom appeared from the dining room. Her face was composed now, but her eyes were red. "So, you're really leaving," she said, not quite a question. "You asked me to," I replied simply. She nodded once, a sharp, jerky movement. "You've made your choice clear, Emily." "No, Mom. You made the choice for both of us 3 years ago. I just lived with the consequences." I walked out the door without looking back, though I could feel her eyes on me as Uncle James loaded my suitcase into his car. As we pulled away, I caught a glimpse of her in the doorway. A small, rigid figure framed by light, watching her daughter leave for what might be the last time. In the car, Uncle James glanced at me. "Your father would have liked Ethan, you know. He never cared about all that status nonsense your mother is obsessed with." I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. We drove in silence to the hotel Ethan had already booked. Before I got out, Uncle James squeezed my hand. "Give her time, Emily. She's stubborn, but she loves you. Eventually, she'll realize what she's losing." I didn't believe him. I was too raw to imagine any path to reconciliation. Checking into the hotel alone, my family celebrating without me just miles away, I felt both a profound sense of loss and, surprisingly, relief. The secret was out. The double life was over. Whatever came next, at least I would face it honestly, with Ethan by my side. The flight back to Seattle the next morning was a blur. I moved through the airport in a daze, replaying every word, every expression. I cycled through grief, anger, guilt, and back again multiple times. When the plane touched down, Ethan and Hazel were waiting at the arrival's gate. My daughter, bouncing with excitement, clutched a homemade sign, "Welcome home, Mommy." Seeing them, my real family, broke through the numbness. I swept Hazel into my arms, breathing in her sweet scent, feeling her little arms wrapped tightly around my neck. "Missed you, Mommy," she whispered, and I had to bite my lip to keep from crying. Ethan embraced us, his steady presence anchoring me. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "It feels like I've lost her all over again, but also, like maybe I lost her years ago and just didn't want to admit it." The days that followed were strangely peaceful. The weight of secrecy had been lifted. Despite the pain of my mother's rejection, I felt lighter, somehow. I threw myself into being present with Hazel, savoring ordinary moments that had often been overshadowed by the stress of my double life. Morning cuddles, bedtime stories, weekend trips to the park all took on a new sweetness, untainted by lies. A week later, a text from Aunt Brenda. "Your mother isn't speaking to anyone who defended you," she wrote. "But several of us would like to keep in touch. Is that okay?" I sent my email and phone number, touched by their small rebellion. Over the next few weeks, messages arrived from various family members, some curious about my secret life, others just offering support. Uncle James sent photos of family gatherings I'd missed, along with stories about my father Mom had never shared. From my mother, there was only silence. I hadn't expected anything else, yet each day without contact deepened the ache. Ethan watched me check my phone obsessively, his eyes filled with concern, but he never pushed or offered empty reassurances. He simply loved me through it, steady and patient. A month after the reunion, a letter arrived, addressed to me in my mother's distinctive handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before I found the courage to open it. "Emily," it began, "no, dear, no affectionate greeting. I have been thinking about what happened at the reunion. While I cannot condone the deception you practiced for 3 years, I recognize that my own actions may have contributed to your decision. Your father always said I was too rigid, too concerned with appearances. Perhaps he was right." The letter continued for several pages, alternating between justified anger at my lies and reluctant acknowledgement of her role in creating the situation. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was more self-reflection than I'd ever seen from her. "I don't know where we go from here," she concluded. "But I find I am not ready to lose my only child or to continue missing out on my granddaughter's life. If you are willing, perhaps we could speak on the phone sometime." I cried as I read it, then again with Ethan, analyzing every word for hidden meanings. In the end, we decided it was a genuine, if imperfect, olive branch. I called her the following Sunday. The conversation was stilted, awkward. Both of us carefully avoided triggers. We talked about the weather, her garden, Hazel's preschool. It was superficial, but it was a start. Those Sunday calls became a weekly ritual. Gradually, the conversations grew longer, more substantial. She started asking about Ethan, tentative at first, then with increasing interest. I shared stories about our life, our home, our plans. She listened, occasionally offering comments that revealed she was still processing the reality of my choices. "You own a house?" she asked one call, surprise evident. "With a garden?" "Yes, Mom. Ethan grows vegetables. Hazel has her own little patch where she plants sunflowers." A pause. "Your father always wanted a vegetable garden." I never had the patience for it. 3 months after the reunion, Mom asked if she could visit. Ethan and I discussed it at length, weighing the benefits against the risk. In the end, we invited her, but on our terms. "You're welcome to visit," I told her during our next call. "But you need to understand, this is our home, our life. I need you to respect that. To respect Ethan as my husband and Hazel's father." "I understand," she said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. "I'd like to try, Emily." I really would. Her first visit was tense, but civil. She arrived with an expensive doll for Hazel and a bottle of wine, both peace offerings. When Ethan greeted her, she stiffly extended her hand. He took it with a warm smile that never faltered. Hazel, oblivious to the complex history, charmed Mom with her curiosity and energy. By the end of the first day, I caught Mom smiling genuinely as Hazel showed her a collection of garden rocks. That evening, after Hazel was asleep, the three of us sat in the living room, the conversation halting. Finally, Mom set down her wine glass and looked directly at Ethan. "I owe you an apology," she said, formally. "I judged you unfairly, based on superficial criteria that had nothing to do with your character or your ability to make my daughter happy. It's clear to me now that you have made her happy in ways I failed to recognize." Ethan nodded, accepting her words with grace. "Thank you for saying that, Susan Clark. All I've ever wanted is for Emily to be happy. We both want that." Mom turned to me, her expression softening. "I've missed so much of your life, Emily. 3 years of marriage, Hazel's birth, her first steps. I'll always regret that." "I regret the lies," I admitted. "I hated living that way, always hiding half my life from you. But I didn't see another option then." "There's blame enough for both of us," she said quietly. "Perhaps we can do better going forward." It was the closest thing to a mutual understanding we had ever reached. The visit ended with tentative plans for Mom to return for Hazel's birthday and a promise for regular updates and photos. The healing process was slow, not without setbacks. Mom occasionally slipped into old patterns, subtle digs about our modest home, questioning our parenting. But now, instead of swallowing my hurt, I'd calmly set boundaries. "That comment was hurtful, Mom," I'd say. "If you continue speaking to us that way, we'll have to end this visit early." To my surprise, she usually backed down, sometimes even apologizing. It seemed the fear of losing her connection to me and Hazel outweighed her need to control and criticize. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. As months passed, our relationship slowly transformed into something new, something healthier. Mom began to show genuine interest in Ethan's work, in our life in Seattle, in the choices we'd made. She still occasionally expressed views that made me cringe, but the sharp edge of judgment had softened. On Hazel's 4th birthday, Mom flew out for the celebration. She brought a photo album she'd created, filled with pictures of me as a child, of Dad, of our family before everything fell apart. "For Hazel," she said, "so she knows where she comes from." That night, after the party, I found Mom sitting on our back porch, looking at the stars. I joined her, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders against the autumn chill. "Thank you for coming," I said softly. It meant a lot to Hazel, and to me. She nodded, still gazing at the sky. "Your father would have loved her so much. And he would have been proud of you, Emily. The life you've built. The mother you've become." I haven't said that enough. We sat in companionable silence for a while, the most peaceful moment we'd shared in years. Finally, she spoke again. "I was wrong, you know. About Ethan. About what makes a good life. About so many things. I was trying to protect you from disappointment, from struggle. Your father and I, we had our challenges. I wanted something easier for you. Life isn't easy, Mom, I said gently. But having people who love you for who you really are makes the hard parts bearable. That's what Ethan gives me. What Dad gave you, I think. She reached over and squeezed my hand, a rare physical gesture from a woman who had always maintained a certain distance. Yes, she said simply. He did. The journey of healing with my mother continues to this day. We still have moments of tension, old wounds that occasionally reopen. But we've found a way forward based on honesty, respect, and the mutual recognition that family connections are too precious to sacrifice for pride or control. Through this difficult journey, I've learned invaluable lessons. I've learned that true love accepts you as you are, without conditions or expectations. I've learned that sometimes the hardest choices, the ones that hurt the most in the moment, lead to the greatest growth. I've learned that honesty, even when painful, is ultimately less destructive than deception. Most importantly, I've learned to define family not by blood or obligation, but by love and choice. Ethan and Hazel are my first family, the one I chose and created. My mother is learning to be part of that family on new terms, ones that respect our autonomy and dignity. As I watch Hazel playing with her grandmother in our yard, I feel a sense of peace that once seemed impossible. The road here was longer and more painful than I ever imagined, but standing in this moment, I know that every step was necessary. Our lives are shaped not just by the love we receive, but by the boundaries we set, the truths we tell, and the courage we find to be authentically ourselves, even when it costs us dearly. Sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and others is to stand firm in our truth, even when it hurts, because only then can real healing begin. Have you ever had to make a difficult choice between your family's expectations and your own happiness? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes.